an actual body structure, and as the other one that you're actually talking about, that's more of a physiological type of structure. Okay, and so no, they're not related at all. Okay.
Because one's sort of a psychological term, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
So it's not really anything to do with. I'm just wondering how they got related, but that's another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, as you can notice, like psychology takes a lot of our stuff too, like with like the brain, cerebral cortex, and all that kind of stuff. Cognitive. Go ahead.
I got a question. It's not about this,
Okay.
but it's about the mastering thing.
Okay,
I went to try to get on last night.
Yeah,
okay.
wait until next week because I have to get the code from Dr. Bates first.
Okay, because I was just
so
wondering.
don't worry, you guys will be up and running by next week. I have to get the code because I'm not a full-time instructor, right?
Okay.
The homework.
It is. Okay.
When you say you don't get the code,
Yeah, they have to place me into.
you don't give us the code, right?
I have to make it available for you all so that you can register.
Right.
So that's where my code comes in at. Okay. That's all that is. Okay.
And when you mentioned hypo, just to go back, you said that was below the rib. Hypo.
Yes.
Was below the rib. Okay.
All right. Okay, so now we're going to go into chapter 2. Chapter 2 is about the basic chemistry. Okay, so it is basic chemistry. You're going to see a lot. Okay. We're not going to go into the depth of the chemistry, okay? So there are 3 states of matter itself, and matter is considered to be anything that has mass and it occupies space. Okay, anything that has mass and occupies space is considered to be matter. So of course we have a solid, we have a liquid, and then we also have a gas. Okay, and so of course, these can, they're actually used within each other, okay? So, of course, a liquid can turn into a solid can turn into a liquid, okay, by freezing and or melting, okay? You also have liquid can be turned into a gas, okay? And then you can also have where a gas can be turned into a condensation type of liquid, okay? All right. All right, so there are different forms of energy. Anytime that you hear energy, that is considered to be like to do work, okay? So energy is to do work, all right? And so you have chemical energy. Chemical energy is just using specific chemicals to create some type of energy source. All right, so an example of a chemical energy could definitely be where you're burning a log, okay? When you're burning an actual log, that is an actual chemical energy that is actually being created, okay? Electrical energy, okay? Electrical energy, again, in this case, is using some type of electrical particles, okay? It's actually using electrical particles. When the lights are being turned on, okay, that is an electrical energy, okay, because it's using some type of electricity, okay, itself. Mechanical energy is like a moving type of energy, okay. Mechanical energy can definitely be more similar to something called kinetic energy, okay. It can very well be very similar to kinetic energy itself. And we haven't talked about kinetic energy yet, but we're about to. And then you have electromagnetic energy. A lot of the radiant or electromagnetic energy are these electron particles that are being used in a lot of like MRIs, X-rays, CAT scans, or CT scans, okay? So we use a lot of electric or electrical impulses with that electromagnetic energy. There's another one called kinetic energy. Kinetic energy is the energy that is moving, okay? So like a kinesiologist, okay, you know, they deal with like a lot of the moving of the body and all of that, right? Okay, kinetic energy is that. And then you also have potential. Potential energy is stored energy. Okay, that's what potential energy is. All right. A lot of times with potential and kinetic energy, all right, so believe it or not, when I was like taking like chemistry and then even for physics, I always heard of potential energy and kinetic energy, and I was like, what is, like, I mean, what's so important about that? Like, am I gonna really use that? Yes, okay? Even though I don't think of it in that kind of basis, even though you don't think of it in that kind of basis, your car, okay? Your car has both potential energy and also kinetic energy. Okay, and so the potential energy is the stored energy because of the battery, okay, itself, all right? When you start your car up, okay, and it starts to moving, those wheels start to moving, that is kinetic energy, okay? That's the actual kinetic energy because now your car is moving, okay? Now,
so is that like the battery and the motor and everything gives it potential to move, and then once we actually crank it, it's kinetic?
exactly. Exactly. Okay. Exactly. Okay. All right. And then so as you know, when the car is moving, you know the car gets hot, right? The car starts to warm. It gets hot. Okay. And so we'll start to learn something where that the kinetic energy produces also heat. Okay. That even goes with us as humans. Okay. We also have potential energy and also kinetic energy. Okay. As well, right? And so let's just say an example when we are not moving, okay, which is like very well not that much, but say when we're asleep, okay, now yeah, we're breathing, okay, but we're not doing any type of skeletal muscle movements unless you're one of those that just likes to roll over, be all over the bed. I do it all the time, okay? All right, so but the kinetic energy part will be the actual moving, all right? And so when you are moving, it doesn't even matter how cold it is inside of a place, right? When you get to moving, you start feeling warm, right? You start warming up, right? So kinetic energy deals with also producing that heat as well, okay?
Quick question about
Yeah.
the energy with the humans. You talked about, you know, us with when we interact. Sometimes it's I can feel your energy. What is there a category for that, or is like
I can feel your energy.
yeah, like you know.
I can feel your heat, maybe.
We radiate a certain type of mood or being, just a
psychic
presence.
energy.
I think you want more into like psychology, probably. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, that's more psychology because I
Yeah.
didn't know if you know anything of it.
I don't. The only thing that I would know is that if I'm passing by somebody that has been moving a lot, I'm gonna feel their heat. But I'm not thinking of it like that. But if you think of it, you're gonna feel their heat. But if you're talking about like energy, I don't know anything about that. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know. That's more like psychology, though. I think they talk about that in psychology. I don't know. I didn't really like psychology, but okay. All right. All right. So there are different elements. Okay. So you do have different elements. If you remember, like the periodic table. Okay. You had the calcium. You had the potassium. You had sodium. You had all of these ions, right? Those are considered to be elements. Okay, and so those elements have matter. Okay, so which means that they occupy space. Okay, they actually occupy space. They have matter, and they actually occupy the actual space itself. So we do have physical properties and then also chemical properties. Now, when it comes down to the physical properties is something that we sense. Okay, and we have different sensory organs. Okay, so we have, of course, our hearing, our smell, we have our sight, we have all of those, right? The chemical properties is what we'll mainly more so talk about in this chapter because the chemical properties will create something called bonds, okay? It is called chemical bonds, all right? So we have ionic bonds that we need to talk about, we have covalent bonds that we need to talk about, hydrogen bonds that we need to talk about. There are specific bonds, okay? Now, a lot of these elements do bond together, okay? And we're going to talk about how and the importance of those. So the atoms, an atom is again considered to be the smallest subunit of the body, right? Or making of the body, right? Okay? And so it is considered to be a building block. A building block is that subunit, okay? Because remember, when those atoms come together, they're now making molecules, right? Exactly. They're now making these molecules. And so that is like, it's like a blueprint, okay? So it's trying to create a person per se. Okay.
You said atoms are subunits?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right. And then so also a lot of these elements have atoms as well. Okay. All of these units have the actual atoms itself. Now, on the periodic table, you have 92 natural elements. The rest of those are man-made, okay? They had to be man-made because we started getting things like MRI machines, CT scan machines and all that, and we needed more complex elements, okay, that need to be used. All right, so like plutonium and radium and other stuff like that, those are not natural, okay? But now calcium, okay, potassium, chloride or chlorine and all those, boron, like
Natural or is it?
Na, yeah. Sodium is, okay?
Now, are the natural elements things that can be found in the body?
Yes, exactly. We have a few natural elements that are actually found in the body. We have sodium, we have potassium, we have all of those, chlorine, okay? And we're gonna talk about that. The atomic symbol of an element is the letter, okay? So that's exactly what it is. We don't even have to know chemical shorthand because it's like, what the heck is that? It's the letter, okay? So if we are looking at calcium, calcium is
Ca.
yeah, Ca. If we're looking at potassium, it is
K.
K, right? Yeah, K, right? Okay.
Iron is
If we are looking at P, we're looking at phosphorus, right? Okay. So again, that's what the atomic symbol is. We don't need to know nothing about it being a chemical shorthand because that means letter. All right. These are some of the major elements that are found inside of the human body. It's way more than this. Okay. We have way more than this. All right. But these here are made up at least 96.1% of inside of our body itself, which means that these are considered to be important elements in the body. Okay. So we have carbon, we have hydrogen, oxygen, and then also nitrogen. All of these are very important for us to be able to have our daily activity inside the body itself. And then here you have 9 elements that make up the rest of the body mass. Okay, a lot of these are called trace elements. Okay, as well. And so with these trace elements, these trace elements are also very important because, of course, if you have too little or too much of it, it can cause a disorder or a disease. Okay, so with the calcium is considered to be like a trace element. I consider calcium to be a very important one, and I'm just going to be honest because calcium deals with our bones and bone growth and bone hardening and all of that. Okay, but they place it into like a trace element. Phosphorus. Also, we don't talk about phosphorus that much when it comes down to the bone, but the phosphorus is also for bone maintenance as well. Okay. Potassium. Potassium is for, like, you know, you don't have too much of that potassium, or you have the least amount of potassium found in the body, you end up having something called muscle spasms. Okay, and so that's why that sometimes they'll tell you either to eat a banana or take a potassium pill. Okay.
Like,
to release that
so like
muscle
cramps,
spasm.
so like a basketball game or in the sports workout or something like that.
Yes, that can definitely be that. And also when you're consuming a lot of alcohol, you know that the potassium levels go down, and then sometimes people end up with like these little muscle cramps after they sober up. Okay. Sodium. Okay. Sodium is also very important as well. And even though that they say it's a trace element, we do have a lot of that. It wasn't time for us to go.
No,
Oh, okay.
I just got to leave to go get
Oh, yeah,
to the
that's
other class.
Okay. Sodium. Okay. And so with that, that sodium is very well important inside of the body. Not only is it important for like nerve function.